Hello.
Hi, how are ya?
Doing well. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's been forever since I actually talked to you.
It has, yeah.
I'm gonna dig right into it. So, tell me about how you got started in the ecosystem. Take us back to your first step.
I'm an accidental admin, which is a common term now. And it's because my first, admin profile, as you would call it, the company I worked for really had no idea that's what they were granting me. I joined a nonprofit, the PBS affiliate here in Minnesota. And the day I started is the day their system administrator resigned. So we had 2 weeks to learn some processes that ran about $5 to $7 million of fundraising through their organization and their Salesforce org. And I basically got to raise my hand and say, I'd like to learn that in addition to whatever it is you hired me for. So
Hmm.
I got her admin profile and we started training for 2 weeks.
Cool. So at that point, sorry, this is a side question I didn't have on there. Had you done any trailhead or anything at that point?
Not at that point, no. My only prior exposure to Salesforce before that day and that 2 weeks was in college. There was one speaker that came in from Cargill on one day where this like decision sciences kind of overview course was just spending like 2 to 3 days on the concept of a relational database, like basic foreign key, the two tables, where they teach you like this is the ID from the other table, like really basic stuff. And I can't stress enough that it was like 2 days out of a much larger overview course.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So I'd
cool.
heard the name Salesforce because of that person who spoke, but I'd never opened an org.
Wow. So you really learned on the fly there.
Yeah, that's what they call jumping in the deep end. Yep.
Yep. Tell us a bit about your background.
Well, before landing into this career I think I was already like 30 almost by then, in my late mid 30s. I had 26 jobs before I was 26 years old. So my friends' parents would get kind of used to me. Hey, what are you doing? When I'd come and visit my friends, what are you up to now? And they got used to me saying I had a new job. And it was just because back then I was undiagnosed ADHD. I didn't know that I had a neurodivergence that, changed how I worked in the workplace. And so I got really good at making a first impression. I got really good at building rapport. But if other problems occurred, I'd just go get a new job. And so it's hard to call them problems. Now after working on it for the last couple of years since diagnosis, I've been able to unpack that these were just behaviors born of a teenager not knowing what's going on around him. And when you see it with clear eyes, you realize you just kind of chose a bad behavior that could have been healthier.
Okay. Yeah, we have some ADHD in our household as well. It's you just learn to work with it.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Yeah. For viewers who might not know you, could you describe yourself in a couple of sentences?
I make meaning where there is none, and I reflect the meaning that people show me. And I say that because I spent 3 years as a job interview coach and really helped people break into this career path because it's been so great for me. And I'm just really passionate about it. But it's born of that statement, those two sentences, is born of what I witnessed. And I met over 300 people. I made videos that helped over 1,000 people. I'm really proud of that because it's work. It's my life's work. And over and over again, it reinforced that people are not seen or heard the way they want to be, where they think they are. And so offering them this mirror that says, here's what you are to me, here's who you've told me you are to me. They get to make a choice then. Is that who I was trying to be? Is that what I see in myself? And then, because it's coaching or it's a job interview preparation, maybe they try again. Maybe we do the prompt again. But no matter how many times we did the prompt, no matter how many minutes we spent working on an answer, from my vantage point, they were always the same person. I was just trying to help them communicate that to everyone else.
And you helped me too, so thank you for that. It did mean a lot.
Well, thank you.
So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody looking to start a career in this field right now?
There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise in the marketplace right now. We've got a billionaire owner trying to say that Agentforce is going to change everything and make everything better. Meanwhile, we've got developers and administrators on the front lines doing the actual work that are not really seeing that value yet from Agentforce and AI in general, whether you use Salesforce's AI or others. And so that creates very noisy confusion in the middle because, well, we're able to accomplish some tasks with AI. We have not yet been able to complete the entire role of an administrator or a developer or a business analyst with these LLMs that have hit the scene 2 years ago, right? And so I start there because this is what they're hearing down in the trenches of job seekers, and especially people that, just like me, didn't have much exposure to Salesforce before trying to break into this career path. And so while all these messages are floating around the marketplace, they can feel very contradictory and very dissonant. My advice to those job seekers is build. Just build. If you're building something in the Salesforce platform, you are progressing yourself. Your human intelligence will be faster than the AI intelligence, right? And when they get into that job interview setting, because they've been building enough for their resume to pop, then they start to get those interviews. Then it shifts again for a second time. You will have to communicate your human skills, that's soft skills, communication, political navigation, discernment, things like that aren't really showing up on a hard skills list of cloud names, right? When you demonstrate those in your verbal communication, then the two come together and suddenly it's not as noisy and suddenly you're given a job offer. And I'm curious, Katie, if I could just ask you a question in response to my answer there. Like, did you see that last year? Did you see how your Experience Cloud site and then the shift that I'm talking about when you had to get into the interviews and say who you were?
It made it so much easier to talk about things, having actually done things.
Yeah.
Because I am a career changer. So I came from early childhood education where, yeah, we use computers, we use smart boards and all that kind of thing. And we had to navigate Zoom and Google Classroom and everything in 2020. But like I had no experience with Salesforce before I started trying to learn it. I'm an on purpose admin, but I don't know the phrase for that. But if not, I just coined that one. But yeah, building is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's not to be confused with your study time and your certification.
Right.
I say
That's also
building,
important.
let's define building as like you've got a creative idea and you make it exist. That's building. Yeah.
Hmm. And it's really fun as you're doing it along the way as well. So highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your go-to resources like blogs or learning platforms that you would recommend for increasing knowledge about Salesforce administration, aside from Trailhead, of course?
This is a really fun one. And that's why I wrote so little because it would take so long to explain. Okay. So
Okay.
Cunningham, here, first I'll demonstrate Cunningham's law. Cunningham's law is, you can find it on Wikipedia, describes the principle of, 20% of the work you do is making up 80% of your results. Now, if you picked up carefully, that's wrong. That's Pareto's principle. But I just said it wrong. So now let's actually define Cunningham's law. Cunningham's law is where you go on the internet, like I usually use Reddit for this, and I say something I know to be slightly wrong or a strong opinion towards one direction about a Salesforce thing, because the internet will react by correcting you much faster than it'll give their opinion generously. So you
Okay.
can use this in our careers. So an example of how I used this was my boss tasked me with choosing a data migration tool for this project that we only had 190 days to migrate 130 million records, which is a very daunting task. Many companies spend an entire 12 months on this, and we got 190 days, which meant we had to pick a tool fast. So my boss said, well, you get 10 days to pick a tool. And I'm like, 10 days? That's not enough time to install them, test them, figure out what requirements we have, talk to the team about everything it should be able to do. Like, I was panicking, like absolutely panicking. But that's where that ADHD kicks in. That's like, hey, I've been in this state my whole education, writing the paper the night before and still getting an A, right? And so to shortcut all of the research that I would do, I said, I have to leverage other people's research. I have to leverage people who've been experienced in this data migration stuff that I've never had a project this large on my plate. I need to leverage that experience, but how am I going to get them to talk to me fast enough? I can't make that many phone calls, that many 30-minute coffees in 10 days. So I turn to Reddit, I open up the Salesforce Reddit, which has thousands of members, and I go and I put one of my top choices, which I already know is going to be wrong. Right? And I say, we're thinking of using MuleSoft for a huge data migration. Anyone have experience with some others? It just looks like MuleSoft might be the best, knowing full well that's wrong. I mean, there's some truth to it. It's great if you have the developers that already know the tool, but none of our developers knew it yet. And so they confirmed my hypothesis by correcting me immediately and saying, no, you want to use this tool. No, we use this tool. Man, data loader ain't going to get you that far. Like it was just, I just got to read the comments, hundreds of comments, and I'm pulling out tool names. I'm adding them to my spreadsheet. I'm going and checking their pricing, their pages, their marketing brochures, and I'm shortcutting 6 weeks of research into 10 days.
Wow. Wow.
That's Cunningham's Law.
Yeah. I'm going to remember that one.
Remember the trick to Cunningham's Law is you have to say it slightly wrong on purpose.
Slightly. Okay. What do you think is the most underrated product or best kept secret in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Salesforce data is really expensive in comparison to other options like Azure database or the Snowflake database. The cost per record is minuscule compared to Salesforce. But I think we're a little too hesitant as developers and admins to create data that'll help us make a decision later. And that's not data necessarily for the users to make a decision. We get those requirements all day long, every day. I mean data for us as the application team to make a better decision later. So the tool that I think is underutilized is the concept of a logging object. Now, my team taught me this at my old job where we had an integration logging object. Now, this was focused to only the integration. If the integration was failing, show us an error code from the other system, but show it in the Salesforce logging object, right? It became our design pattern for every time we were modifying this integration. But the number of times we needed that log file or record from a triaging situation of like what has gone wrong was very high. And if we had not first put that into the design pattern to have that error message in this place we were trying to troubleshoot, it would have been a lot harder to get to the root cause. And so take that principle of fixing an error and now move it into data-driven decision-making. A really great example that I wish I'd had time to implement is the concept of every time you make a flow, you should have you should have one object for this, but the premise is you'd always add to the rows of data to this object. Add a flow logging object that logs flow failure errors out of some fault paths, but more importantly, is also counting the number of times it's used. And you can make a report and an analysis in 6 months that says this button we put onto a page layout that activates this flow has been clicked 1,250 times. Now you can extrapolate now and say, well, we think that's saving them 30 seconds every time they clicked it. Well, that's 600 minutes of labor saved. That's going to tell somebody something about how important automation is in this platform. Now, a lot of times we make a decision based on money costs and things like that. I don't think we need to convince any product owner that automating something is valuable. But when you have opportunity cost, where some things are more valuable to implement than others, suddenly this data becomes valuable again. Because should we automate this thing that only needs to be a little used, or automate this thing that like I can prove to you because we've already been tracking on the logging object, they do a lot of this thing. And so herein lies the crux of this. I know this is a long answer, but I really want to convince every product owner of this principle. When you are going to make a case to spend company money, like $30,000 for a tool, if you've been logging your inferior solution for 6 months, the one you could custom code with Flow or Apex, you now have a stronger business case for the expense. Like, hey, yeah, we could modify this custom tool a second time, which then we still have to maintain it. Then we still have costs associated with that for our development team to keep this thing running. It's gotten us this far to prove a principle. Look, it's use. I got the usage data. But I really like to pay another vendor to do this the rest of the way. And then every time they make an update to their tool, I think it justifies the $30,000 cost.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
I'm thinking specifically of one that I wanted to get through, which was like a file management app somebody else had made. And I'm like, oh, we need this so bad. And I do not want a custom code file management UX.
That's fair. In your opinion, what are some of the most in-demand technologies or skills you are seeing or have been using?
DevOps is really hot right now in the large enterprises, but I think there's a opportunity in the mid-size clients as well to be thinking about DevOps. I know that there's a lot of mid-size consulting firms that will go ahead and build some things right in production just because the client's budget is not really justifying build something twice, build it in the sandbox, then deploy it to your production environment. And the clients can make this decision because the risk is low, right? Maybe the type of change isn't going to really hurt the design in production. I'm not going to go tell somebody they need to design a report in a sandbox, right? And even some flows are very safe to do in production while you're designing them. However, for companies to grow, I think DevOps is being underutilized as a thinking process as well. So when you build for the purpose of DevOps, you start tracking very carefully what you've changed so that you can deploy it safely and package it up together through the Salesforce process to deploy. And you create these gateways of decision-making and feedback that I think are underrepresented. So when you go show something that you've built and it's in production already and data is being modified, either you're cluttering up your data with test records, or worse, you're starting to make real changes to real records. And well, yeah, you might demonstrate the tool or the fix. You've introduced a risk that was unnecessary. And so if you could show them something in a sandbox before hitting production, well, it feels like slowing down. I really think people are underestimating the conversation it creates. Do you like this? Did we meet our agreement? You asked for X, we built X to your specification. Are we talking the same language? And then when you move to production, if you follow this DevOps principle, now you're sharing the win in execution, both the users and the owners and the clients that are paying and the team that built it to deploy it. It really creates this gate that what I would call it an alignment gate. You're saying we should celebrate this getting deployed together. Your idea made real. Does that make sense?
It totally does. I really agree. What is your prediction for our industry in the next few years?
This one's going to take some time to unpack, so feel free to make a 3-part series. No, I'm just joking. I'm tracking a few different patterns, and maybe that's my neurodivergence. Maybe that's just being human. But leaders really want tasks to be performed by artificial intelligence because it's cheaper. The humans really want to do tasks that are meaningful, that make each workday rewarding. Somewhere in between, we're asking AI to do all of our mental cognitive load just to have more energy for the rest of the day. And leaders are wanting us to remove entire job positions for the cheaper resource of an AI. These are like oil and water right now. They're not really settling out today or tomorrow. So in the next 3 to 5 years, what I predict is going to happen is the retirement of many developers that are over 50 years old today. Developers that have had a nice income in a tech market that was hot, that saved up their money, And they're like, I don't need to go through this anymore. You have changed everything about what my role used to be. I used to be training human junior talent. I used to be working with other humans in a capacity that coached and guided them. And I've lost that connection. I've lost that human to human FaceTime, and you've replaced it with prompt and AI. And that doesn't feel the same. Oh, sure, I can do the work of 3 junior developers with my senior level knowledge and correct all the code that's only 85% done, but the work isn't rewarding anymore. And so they're going to retire. And when they do is when the consequences come. Because then, and only then, in 3 to 5 years, the employers, especially the largest ones like Accenture and Booz Hamilton and what's another, Medtronic, and 3M has one of the largest orgs in the world, 20,000 users or more, right? They're right here in Minneapolis. These employers are going to realize on their Salesforce team there's a gap because they haven't been spending the last 3 to 5 years training up that junior talent. And so that's why I'm so passionate about the entry-level space, because I'm choosing in my career to stay always connected to how those entry-level people are learning, because I learned too through the process. Mm-hmm. But it's because that's the only way we don't stumble into that gap and fall that face first and not be able to recover as an employment career path like Salesforce. Like Salesforce could literally just collapse under their own weight of having no talent. But I think it's our community, the Ohana and the Trailhead and all those things that are still focused on that junior level talent, having a safe and fake environment to play in that's going to allow them to step over that gap while other industries completely fall on their face. Is that making sense? Because I could go into way more detail.
It does. It does make sense.
But we're already starting to see that developer burnout today. It's just, I don't think they're ready to retire yet.
I get it. What do you think will be the next big shift?
Salesforce is dominant in the marketplace. 25% of all CRMs are going to Salesforce right now, but that's also because of the scale of most of their client base is a large enterprise with more than 100 users. They, for the last 5 years, have pushed flow development, despite many of those large enterprises having developers on staff that can write the Apex code that's better than flow. That despite that, they were still pushing flow. And that's because of shareholder value wanting increased user counts, pure and simple. Their growth area was in the mid-size market. So now we're in, maybe 10 to 50 users, 10 to 100 users, right? Of a new Salesforce org, probably a $1 million to $50 million enterprise. Pretty mid-size is widely defined, right? But that's why every Dreamforce was so heavy on flow features for the last 10 years, because they needed that growth in user licenses. So the next big shift, I believe, is Salesforce is going to learn the hard way that if we keep cutting jobs, they're not going to grow their user count. They're cannibalizing themselves. And therefore, their growth area is going to be in the small business, sub $1 million. And with the job market in its current state for the next 3 to 5 years, I believe we're going to see so many job seekers out of desperation move to freelancing instead of getting an employer to hire them, that they also are going to be supporting the small business. So look who meets at the bar over a drink, because they're both looking have a problem to solve. Yeah. The job seeker who's unemployed and the small business who still doesn't have a CRM, and Salesforce seemed too daunting, too large, too big to leverage. So there's the risk. HubSpot and other vendors can still try to come in and disrupt this. But I think the talent pool of the community is so strong, and as that number of job seekers remains high, we can just implement Salesforce faster than we can go learn HubSpot. Right? And so, I mean, sure, go ahead and learn them both if you want to build your freelancing business. But I'm just saying that it's sitting right there for the taking, right? And so the next big shift, I think, is these large enterprises, as they slough off positions, your junior developers, your admins, you're going to see the market fill up with small freelancing consultant firms. Some of them might even grow to 5 people, but just mostly sole proprietors. And here's what I'm leading up to. They're going to come crawling back. The enterprises are going to want to hire these freelancers, and we are going to not want the job. And so what's going to switch is we will no longer, because we've spent 3 to 5 years being sole proprietors, we are going to shift away from employment to what's called a business to business contract. And so now they're going to try to get these people off, back into employment. And we're going to be like, you know what? How about we just write my contract that I work 20 hours a week? How about we, that healthcare was really attractive, but healthcare doesn't pay for anything anymore. So actually, you can just keep your bad healthcare. I've got mine off the exchange as a sole proprietor. And let's just write this the way I want to work. 20 hours a week. I'll help. If you need more than that, it's double the rate. And I bill hourly instead of salary. And they're going to need us because all those people retired. It was a long walk, but did you like the journey?
I did. I did. I also think our Ohana is like really special. I
Yeah.
I when I was trying to find my new path 5 years ago, just like trying to find which path I was going to go, this one definitely this one is definitely special.
Yeah. I tell this tale of two cities, the tale of two companies. My spouse has gotten really far in the marketing technology space, which also has 8,000, almost 12,000 vendors now. It's a space that constantly has disruptors forming new little vendors and companies and tools and stuff, right? It's just a mess, right, at this point. But she's been there 15 years. And so she's sitting at the top of that. And I got to watch her career for the last 15 years and watch what was happening to that industry as dinner table conversation. And we both have noticed, as she watched my career and I watched hers, that well, these other vendors, let's use Adobe as the example of two companies. Adobe Analytics, they never built this community. They never built this trailhead playground like environment for people to learn their analytics tool. You had to get a job with a license that cost thousands of dollars, paid by your employer, to learn the tool. And so they had a talent shortage in the last 5 years. Meanwhile, Salesforce has invested for 15 years in Trailhead and the communities and all those things. And so we've got a talent pool. And so it's just been fascinating to watch as companies are realizing they can't sell more clients unless they can also send them the people.
How do you think that AI will impact the way businesses operate and affect jobs in this field? I know that's also kind of a big one.
I want to first just kind of read the premise I typed up a few days ago just to kind of reset. Jobs are already lost because of AI. Humans are still eager to build things that make their work significant, make their work meaningful, though. The trick that AI has pulled, the cover that's over leadership's eyes right now, is that performing tasks does not always also deliver value. Performing tasks does not always improve the relationship, right? And things like that. And so humans are the ones that still can do that can look through that lens of, yes, I have some bad numbers to report, but how is that going to affect our relationship with this person? Yes, I have some excellent analysis that an AI helped me produce, but I'm going to delete these 3 bullet points because that client's not ready to hear that yet. And now, they can pay me the premium rate and then I'll tell them the bad news. No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying, AI is giving people a lot of information and it sounds like it's coming from a consultant, but it's not a good consultant that knows the lay of the land and the people, right? And not unless you build that into your prompt, which takes way too long. Trust me, I've tried. So I predict that AI will crash big business under its own hubris, and new startups will be born at a faster rate than ever before seen. Not because we want the competition, but because we will move the consumer's dollars away from the multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Now, call me an iconoclast, call me a fool, or call me a prophet. I don't know which one it is yet. Time will tell. But my prediction is in 3 to 5 years, there will be an AI backlash so strong, just like we did to Disney a moment ago. Remember, Disney lost 1 million customers because we got mad at them? Well, if Disney laid off 10,000 people because they have AI, I think the customers would get mad again, right? And if other companies don't realize that that is the pace at which they are changing, the backlash will be even more fierce. And we will literally vote with our dollars and move it to one of these new disruptors that can offer me the same features. I'm coming for you, Amazon. I think I can't buy from another e-commerce website. We can. We chose not to for 15 years.
All right.
Amazon's got AWS, so actually every website's on Amazon anyway. So
Yep.
it's a bigger problem than I made it sound, but I don't think enough PR teams are being engaged well enough yet.
All right, so we're gonna switch it to a little bit less serious now. Well, just less serious in general, I guess.
I'm laughing. So like, who's being serious here? You're the one asking all the tough questions.
I know. I'm being less serious.
I need a Rodney Dangerfield tie. Like, nobody takes me seriously.
Just use your strings.
Yeah.
So, do you have any recommendations for a book or podcast, TV show, movie, anything else you've enjoyed recently? It can be professional or personal.
Yeah, when I got COVID a couple years ago, I got reacquainted with a TV show that's now long since been canceled, but it was my chance to kind of catch up on it and watch something like 6 seasons. But I really liked the depiction of the Expanse is the name of the TV show. And it's been out for a while, so sorry for the spoilers ahead, but in it they describe a society in the future that we are like sending humans to Mars. They live on Mars for their entire lives. People are born on Mars, and then there's a lot of people mining these asteroid belts for resources, and they have a lot of challenges because they live in space their whole lives. And there's challenges that come along with that, and it really creates this bifurcation of society. You know, those people who lived on Earth and those people who were mining out in space. And then an alien race appears and everything changes. And I feel like this is so similar to like, and then artificial intelligence appeared, right? Like we have something we all need to react to together, but how do we deal with our differences, right? And well, Expanse is a great drama. It doesn't really offer us any ideas or solutions to that. Instead, why I use this one to answer this question is there was something depicted about those aliens that I think really sticks with me. They deconstructed everything they encountered. And in the drama of the show, that meant a lot of people died. But like that's just drama, you know, but like by deconstruction, I mean like literally taking it apart by the atom. And then to understand whatever they were assimilating, they would then reconstruct it in a different ways and experiment, right? And so I say that because I think that's kind of where neural technology, neural nets and LLMs are today. They've deconstructed all of our text and reconstructed it in through hundreds of millions of users, prompting it and getting back the next most likely word. And so it's a reconstruction of our own text and knowledge, but it's not true thinking. And likewise, that alien was very destructive in that TV show because it looked like it didn't care what it was doing. It looked like it didn't know what it was reconstructing, though, you know, that could be challenged. And, you know, is it sentient or not? You know, it's debatable. It's a TV show. But with AI, I see a lot of people asking similar questions. Is this knowledge? Is this wisdom? Is this insight? Or is this just an ironic nature of reciting back the next most likely word to human beings? I don't have the answers, but from my vantage point, I think men have been doing this trick for 100 years, 200 years of speaking confidently and seeing what falls out. And I think that's part of that backlash is people are in a way getting smarter at reading that this isn't truth. This is just some information that sounds good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hopefully we all improve our discernment skills.
I think we're trying. Well, I'm gonna have to look that up. Hey, do you know what platform is that on?
I think I caught it on Netflix, but it might have dropped off. I don't know where it would be on now. Hey, if you want something more positive, go back to Star Trek.
No, I'm good. No, I think I actually
There's 40 seasons of that, but
do. We do
the
tend
times
to.
we're in, I feel like there's something a little closer to reality.
Mhm. Well, my husband and I, Ryan, we actually do watch science fiction. That could be called science fiction, right?
Hmm.
Science
Definitely.
fiction
Definitely.
sometimes, so I'll look for it. But thank you so much for your time.
Hope it was helpful. Sorry to be so doom and gloom or
No, I
realist, but it's just unprecedented change is coming from, leading to unprecedented visions of the future. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fighting like hell to make it a positive future every day with every person I work with. But AI is moving fast. So that's how I'd sum it up. I'm going to start signing my emails, Justin Duck, Salesforce Administrator, Human Intelligence. Just see.
I believe that. I believe that you will do that.
And I have one more thought for you. I want to leave you with this. I really think it would be funny, but also effective if firms like Cloud Adoption Solutions started selling their human intelligent consultants the same way we sell artificial intelligence right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like, hey, I got a team that can do this work amazing. I've trained them up with some of the best models. And I've even, just to make it easier to work with this chatbot, I've named it Katie. I've, it's just a little easier to work with than just like AI chatbot. But like Katie is available, certain hours of the day, and then we switch the name of that chatbot at different hours of the day. If you want the 24-hour package, it took us a lot longer to train up that model, but it is available. At this fee. Like, is it a fraction of the cost of the other team? We've really poured our resources into this, so we think that we've got the best model. Like, we're charging the best rates.
Yeah,
Basically selling human intelligence the same pitch model as Agent Force or something like that. I think would be hilariously effective.
that's funny.
Well, have a great day.
You too. See ya. Bye.